Yeah, I know I look kind of funky, but I just couldn't wait to talk about this book. Kim here with another one of my incredibly insightful book reviews. If you haven't seen the video on how I rate and review books, you may want to check it out right there. I have my own scoring system and things like that that can be confusing. Robert Michals, The Demon in the Trees by Ben Sanders. Ben is a fellow booktuber. He's one of the very first booktubers I subbed to. Like, I really love his stuff. His videos are so great, and it turns out that his writing is so great. So let's get right into this review. Before we go any further, I wish to inform you that I was sent this book in exchange for an honest review. Robert Michals, The Demon in the Trees by Ben Sanders is about a brand new promoted inspector named Robert Michals, and he lands his first case that turns out to be a pretty big case and a pretty serious case, and very soon a very sinister, mysterious case. It's a very unique thriller mystery book that deals with some mystical paranormal sort of things that's just so invigorating. That's the first word that comes to mind. It's invigorating. I gave this book an overall score of 17 out of 20. If you insist upon a star rating, that is indeed 5 stars. The writing and style got a 3 out of 4. The characters got a 3 out of 4. The story got a 3 out of 4. The pacing got a 4 out of 4. And the ending got a 4 out of 4, giving it an overall score of 17 out of 20. The first thing I want to say about this book is that it really was cool. It was just a cool book. You feel cool when you're reading it. You're like, yeah. That is just my initial reaction to this book. But let's get into these categories. The writing and style got a 3 out of 4. I really enjoyed the style of it. I enjoyed the voice in it. I enjoyed the formatting of it. The way in which the story was told, because it does switch perspectives from time to time, but it does it in these short little blips. We get a couple different perspectives in the beginning of the book, but the majority of the story is told from Inspector Michals' perspective. But then every once in a while, we get thrown in like a little snippet of another one, and it's really cool. You jump around in a way that really helped engross you in the story, so you really get a sense that you're there and that you're going through this case and this mystery with them, and it made it really fun, and it really gave you the perspective that you needed to understand the story just so flawlessly. I really liked that. I also liked the voice in the book. Every time we were in Robert's perspective, it felt like one of those old-timey black and white, like 1930s, 40s detective movies with the narration over it. I went over to the lady's house to investigate her premises and found this. You know what I mean? Like how it narrates it, and those old cheesy ones, but not in a cheesy way. You're in this kind of gritty sort of policing vibe that just was really cool. It really made me feel like I was reading an old-timey mystery movie in the modern world. And it wasn't in your face or anything like that about it. It wasn't cramming the style down your throat. It was just this subtlety that I noticed that was so just in the right mood and mindset for the characters in the story, and so I think the writing that way was done wonderfully. The only reason the writing didn't get a 4 out of 4 is because toward the beginning we were introduced to a lot of people, and I was kind of confused and still trying to get everybody situated in my head when the actual plot was taking place. That's totally personal. The first book in a series is often like that. It can take me a little while to just figure out which face goes with what name. And that was the kind of sense I got in the beginning of this book. I was like, wait, which one are you? And that's the only reason it didn't get 4 out of 4. I really liked it. I will say also that being an indie book, it did not read like an indie book. It didn't have that amateur, naive, I think I'm a writer sort of feeling that a lot of indie books can have. This one just felt like a book. I feel like that's high praise just because I've read so many indie books that so many of them have that just weighted amateur feeling, and this one didn't at all. This one just read like a professional novel, and I loved that. The characters also got a 3 out of 4. I loved Robert Michals. He was really cool, really into his job and really into his work, but also he has this emotional side, and you really see that as the story goes on and as he starts to get tired and he starts to get worn out and he starts to work harder and harder. No spoilers, but you can really see how he is sort of breaking down. He starts kind of having these mental conversations and things like that that you see that he's tired and you see that he's working hard and you feel for him and you just want him to get this case solved and to find the girl. Oh, you just root for this guy. You just do. There were a lot of women characters that played important parts in this story, and I loved that. I love that they weren't really used as props. I love that they weren't just a plot tool. I love that they were actual contributing members of the cast. I liked that they were important, and I liked that they were smart, and I liked that they were brave. Fantastically well represented women, and just good on you, Ben, for doing that, because that was so nice to read about, are these women working in law enforcement and doing a good job, and they're not being treated as a plot device. Like, that's so nice. He even touches on sexism a little bit, which I really liked, because there's a character in here that's very sexist and like openly, and they all talk about it, and all the women are annoyed by it and things like that. And I love that, because that's such a real thing that happens. I loved that it was in there, and I loved how it was handled, and I just was fantastic. I loved that. I will say that I felt like Robert Michals could have been a little more disbelieving in these sort of paranormal mythical aspects that hinted at themselves earlier on. We could have had a little more denial from him. I think that's just me reading it. There could have been a little more of a dismissive attitude at some points, but I mean, it wasn't enough to make me think, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like, nothing like that. I really thought every character in this book was so just rounded out nicely and developed nicely, but not too much, because it's not an 800-page book, and I just thought that they were great, and they all contributed in an awesome way. Just an excellent cast of characters we have in this book. I gave the story a 3 out of 4. The story would have been a 4 out of 4 if it weren't for one tiny thing, and that one tiny thing was just the slight inaccuracy in how animal control works with police. I will admit that I live in a completely different part of the country. That could play a role in this. I kind of come from that realm of professional work a little bit. My mom used to run animal control. My sister worked in animal control. Like I'm very, very familiar with the workings of animal control. The way animal control was such an integral part of the story was really awesome. However, there were some instances where the accuracy of how they would do things and how involved they would be in the case and things like that weren't quite right. Like I said, it could be different in the New England states where this kind of takes place. They could play a different role there. That's very possible, because that's like state-run thing, and so every state could totally be different in how they run their animal control. But I just know that from my experience, animal control wouldn't do what animal control did in this book. That was distracting just for me. Like, for anybody else, it's not gonna be a big deal, but for me, unfortunately, that was a kind of a ping that I was like, oh man, I really wanted to give the story 4 out of 4, but I just couldn't because of that. Otherwise, the story was fantastic. It was gripping, it was thrilling, it was engrossing, it was riveting, perfectly mysterious and perfectly suspenseful. It was intense enough to keep me turning page after page after page, but it was not intense enough that I needed to take a break, which is the perfect balance for me. I love the paranormal aspect. I love the town aspect. I love the setting of the book. I loved just how everybody kind of worked together. The story had fantastic depth to it. It went far enough without giving me too much that I felt overwhelmed. It just was a really cool, really fun, really good story. It really was. It was a good mystery story. The pacing got a 4 out of 4. It moved swiftly. It did not blow past things though, which was great. It kept my attention fantastically. It didn't drag anywhere with too much detail or anything like that, but at the same time I didn't get any sense of, oh hey, I need more information about that before you move on. Not even once. Like, it just was perfectly paced. The ending also got a 4 out of 4. Of course, there will be no spoilers. I found myself very excited for another book at the end. Ben, are you listening? Are you listening, Ben? I'm ready for another one. Can you hear me? I loved the very, very last page. I loved where it set us up for something in the future, but it also was closure. It was really exciting at the end. The end just wrapped everything up in the perfect package, but also left me going, yeah, let's do it again. Okay. My final thoughts on Robert Michals' The Demon in the Trees. I loved it a lot. It had this really cool dark vibe to it without being like a negative, bogged down doom and gloom sort of book. Like, it had this dark cloud over it, but not in a way that depressed you. I had to know what was gonna happen next. I had to keep reading. I had to find out what this thing was gonna lead to, and who that guy is, and what this guy is talking about, and what's gonna happen when he gets to the thing, and I had to know. It was well written. It was well voiced. I cannot get over that old-timey detective 1940s movie vibe that I got from it, just set in today's world. And I loved that. I loved that. I loved that. I just felt like I could hear Robert Michals narrating this in my head, and it was really a cool reading experience. Thank you so much, Ben, for sending me this. I absolutely loved it. Please go get this book if you like mysteries and paranormal sort of mysteries and things like that, because it was so entertaining. There will be an Amazon affiliate link in the description below for you to go pick that up. Robert Michals, The Demon in the Trees. 2 thumbs up. Go get it. That's gonna do it for this review. I hope that was helpful and enlightening. Consider subscribing to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. There's Wendigos and stuff on this channel. Thanks for watching.